Hey everyone, it's Jason. Today I'm going to do an unboxing for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Heroclix. This is a Fast Forces packs. It's just a couple of things to go through Heroclix if you're not familiar with them. It's a tabletop board game, kind of. Basically you have the little figures. They're all pre-painted. They have all the stats and stuff on the dice. It's like a little miniatures game. Kind of lots of people with, like you might say, like some sort of D&D-ish, or like Warhammer, or like big army games. Except instead of having to try and like sit here and constantly remember or write down stats or all this stuff for all the things, they put all the little stats on the things, and we'll look over that. So Heroclix came out. It was actually first started off as Mage Knight, is where they really started, which was more D&D fantasy type characters. Dragons, elves, but they had like robots and stuff in there too. It was very interesting, and if I buy some more, I have a ton of old Heroclix from back in the day, from the Mage Knight and the original Marvel, and then they did it, and then DC got in on it, and then they've jumped into everything they have. You name it, they've probably made a Heroclix set of it at some point. Star Trek, whatnot. So then I bought this, and then now they've updated the game a lot since I've played it. So I stopped buying them, just started getting really expensive. Because they were like, I think when I used to buy them, they were like $5 for $5 or so for like a pack of 4, and they're all random. But you also get like lots of the same characters, just like different levels, like level 1, 2, and 3. Then they started becoming more and more expensive when they started making all the models different, which is definitely cool. And then now they've only made the models better, the bases better, and the packs, besides the fact I can't find any where I live, I'd have to drive to a different town to go to an actual like hobby store, game store, or I have to order online. That's the other reason I haven't bought any for a long time. But been really big into Ninja Turtles lately. Always been into Ninja Turtles, but so I bought this. I saw this, I bought it. So basically the thing is, that's Heroclix is what it is. And I'll go over some other stuff. I'm not going to go over every little detail about the game, but just so you have an idea of what it is. So basically one player makes a team, other player makes a team, and then you use like movement abilities, and attack abilities, and like some guys have ranged attacks, some have melee attacks. You're trying to defeat your other team. That's basically it. It's a miniature combat game. And you set up maps, and you can have different things to interact with. So that's what that is. This specific pass is the Fast Forces. So the Fast Forces pack they made for Heroclix now is you just see all the characters available instead of it being a blind box. So I can grab this from the store. I can see, yep, I got the 4 turtles, and I got the Bebop, Rocksteady, and then you know exactly what you're getting in the box. These characters in the Fast Forces pack generally also appear in the set as well, but these versions, like the sculpts will be the same, but they also come with little cards in there which say what their abilities are usually different. So if like you're trying to 100% collect the entire set, you have to buy the Fast Forces, and you have duplicates of the characters. But their cards would be different and have different stats on them. These are kind of more like the introductory characters, so they have most of their stats are just like really basic. Like this does this maybe +1 damage, or this does extra movement or something like that. When you buy the actual sets and you get the actual characters, they start having more abilities. And when I used to play, they didn't have these. And I'll get to them. They have these special cards. The original sets never had these. So like, basically the abilities were only whatever were able to be printed on the character. Then as the game evolved, so like I've already opened this and looked at it. So what they've started to do is just started printing off these cards. And I think I bought like 1 or 2 sets here or there that once they started doing these, but they're really neat because then they can add a lot more abilities on there, kind of give them fun flavor names. Plus on the back they can show what the dial is. and all this stuff. So it gives you, so it's like, the idea was supposed to be, you bought your figure, and you had all the information right on the dial. So, like, here we go, we got, I'm going to zoom in on a bit, we got Raphael. So there's all the different information. Who he is, it's Raphael. His point cost. This is the set, so this is 6 with a shredder. I'm assuming 6 must be for Fast Forces because there's 6 figures. Let's just so you know which one. This is number 1 of this set. That way, like, the Turtles one, so you know what set it belongs to. And then on here they have a bunch of other symbols. Right on the base, it has, this one has a dolphin for movement, a fist for attacking, that's how much it attacks, a shield for defense, how much damage it can defend against. This little lightning bolt here shows range, so how many spaces away it can attack. So it says Raphael has 0, because it makes sense, he has size, so he's generally not attacking at a distance. And now you might be like, but he can throw his size and do stuff. Yep, and they you know, there's a thing for that. And then it has how much damage his attacks actually do. And then I forgot what this star does. Again, I haven't played this. This unfortunately doesn't come with instructions on the characters. It's assuming you've already bought a starter set and know how to play. This is just supposed to be, I want to buy this, crack it open, and add 6 new characters to my team, or however. But then what's neat on this is they have little clicky bases. So if I hold the top of the base and the bottom, you can see they kind of 2 separate bases. And I'm trying to figure out how to grab this without breaking it. This base is being really difficult for some reason. Might be because it's the first time I've clicked it. Alright, so now I've clicked it over. You can see a little red 2 on there, and I think that's just to indicate that it's the second dial. But now I have all these numbers. So, and they're kind of hard to see because of his shadow, but he has his movement. He has an 8 with a dark green square. He has 10 attack. He has 16 defense, and he does 2 damage. So he can move up to 8 spaces. So you play like a grid board. He can move 8 spaces. When he attacks, he does 10 damage. Or he attacks for 10, you compare that to somebody else who has 16 defense. So you can see then you have modifiers. And then he does 2 damage. So if he actually hurts the person, he does 2 clicks of damage. So if they take damage, they click 2 more times. So like say if like he took 2 damage, and I clicked it 2 more. So now he's on dial number 4. But now he has a 7, a 10, a 17, and a 2. But he also has different colored things. So what those represent are different skills he has on here. So like his first movement one, he had a green one, which is a charge ability, and then now it's a red one, so it's flurry. And then again, this is, the idea is just supposed to be is like, I could play this character, I didn't need any of this stuff, I just have to have a little guide. And I have one here from a really old set, it's from the Legions of Super, it's probably, the text is out of date, I'm sure on that, so they probably updated some of them. But they're fairly close. So basically what it means is you can look at him and be like, I'm playing him, I know that right now, him sitting on the table, he has this much movement, this much attack, this much defense, and he has this special ability. I have to grab this one little pamphlet or whatever to see what that does. And if you played the game enough, and now they have these cards, is that instead of having to sit there and constantly look, oh, what's the red one do? You can look at, okay, this is charge, this is flurry, this is blades, claws, and things. So if you played the game enough, you would know what these specific abilities do without having to refer to the other book. But even if you have to refer to it, it helps you a little bit easier because then you say, okay, red's flurry, so I can go to my chart, look at which one says red flurry, or maybe if you can't tell the color, like red and oranges look. So like here on the back, it's going to show all his different stats. So on each die, it's going to show he has 3 of charge, 2 of that one, and he only has 5 dials, and then he's KO'd. Again, this is a basic figure for 50 points. But it just shows all his different stats, and they change over time. It's also kind of trying to show like how the character would change as as they take more damage or they get madder or whatever, their abilities are going to change a little bit. So, like, his damage down here, he has Exploit Weakness, which I think lets him do a little bit extra damage, versus he gets Battlefury towards the end of his dial, which means he can no longer do ranged attacks, I believe, if I remember right. I can look at them if I had to. But yeah, it starts to change. Like, he changes from, like, you know, like, hey, I can do a little bit extra damage, I'm still calm, and then he gets angry at the end, and he's like, alright, I'm just lashing out, but he does more damage. But yeah, that's what makes this game really neat, is that all the characters have different little stacks like that, and they're built right into the dials. So we got our characters. So we have a Raphael, and I'm going to look at the characters here. So, this is the other thing that's really cool about these cards, besides showing off the abilities. Also shows if they have special abilities and keywords. So, like Raphael has the keywords TMNT, TMNT Ally, Animal, and Martial Artist. And what that means is there are going to be other cards probably in the regular set that you can get, the blind boxes and that. They'll have, might have abilities that affect things. It might say, like, do this if you have a TMNT character, or this TMNT allies gain this. Or if you're mixing it with the Marble or DC, you could have, like, something with martial artists or animals, and they link to these keywords. So it's just an extra thing they added to the game when they made these cards that you didn't have in the original. So that was really cool, because that way you could mix and match stuff more. And then they have some of these special abilities, like his anger issues, a unique modifier. Adjacent characters named Donatello, Leonardo, or Michelangelo modify their damage value +1. So that means any of the other turtles are next to him, they get 1 extra damage. So that's actually kind of cool, because so you can plan your team, and that's what these points are. You set up a point number, usually I think the base is like 300 points. So each of the turtles is 50, so that's 200 if you're just playing with just the turtles. You basically, each player has to have the same amount. You can probably go up or down depending on, you know, how many people you want and this and that. But yeah, so like they might have a different Raphael, either from the set, it's the same sculpt, or from like a different version of him from like one of the different universes, because this is the animated series. The original. They could have like the Nickelodeon version, or like an alternate version, or he's like a superhero or something like that, who could have a higher or lower point value, which he got more or less clicks. But that way you can mix and match any of them, so if you basically have all 4 turtles and they stay near each other, they're going to modify each other and gain bonuses. But if they kind of go off on their own, or you just include one by himself, that ability is not as effective. Other quick thing to point out is he has a dolphin for a movement speed. And I want to point out, we have a Rocksteady here. He has a foot for a movement speed. The difference is basically whether they can move in water or not. Otherwise, there's like various terrain, like if you're trying to go up buildings, things cost more movement points or going through water. But the turtles, being amphibious, can go through water without costing extra points. So it's kind of a neat extra feature. There's other things like that in the game. So he has charging. Again, I am looking at the Legion of Superheroes set, which is very old. I don't even know if this has a date on it. 2007. So it is currently 13 years old. This isn't even one of the first sets. This, I think, was one of the first sets I bought that had cards like this, but it's just the one book, the newest book it had. So I need to definitely go buy an extra thing. You did see like all these different foot symbols for speed. But so basically what you would do is you'd match up his things. So like here he has, you want to go, and then let's go for his movement abilities. So its charge says, it's an optional ability. I can give the character a power action to half its speed. The action, move the character up to its replacement speed value, and then give it a close combat for a free action. So what that's saying is, normally, like if like that first Raphael I have, he said he could move 8 spaces. So I could move him 8 spaces, and I could spend an action point. Each character can have up to 2 action points, just so you can't continuously keep reusing the same character over and over and over. You can't like make one mega powerful character. You have a bunch of weak characters. You have to kind of rotate through all your different characters for that reason. Because after they have 2, they take damage of push every time you do it. So like you could keep using them, but they're gonna keep getting hurt more and more. So it's kind of a unique aspect of gameplay. And again, some of these rules they may have changed or adjusted since I played this last. So I apologize if I am wrong. But the way charge thing works is instead of moving 8 spaces, he can move 4 spaces, but then you can do a free attack. So basically, explain he's charging towards someone to attack them. And then his other one was Flurry. So Flurry says, optional, give this character a close combat action. It makes 2 separate combat attacks as free actions, making 2 separate rolls against 1 or 2 adjacent targets. Resolve the first attack if the character loses Fury prior to making a second attack. So that's in case he gets like damaged back from some ability and he loses it, he can't do a second attack. So this is instead of him moving, he can get in close to guys, and when he gets angry, this is towards the end of his dial, his last 2 clicks. Instead of being able to dash forward, he can just do 2 straight up attacks with his moving ability. But he can also attack multiple guys. So it's kind of, that's what's neat about that. And then he's got, like, you asked for it. Just Blade Spot, Claws, and Fangs. So if we went to the attack icon, and it's the top one there, character gives a close combat roll. Roll 1d6 after making a successful attack. This result replaces the character's damage when resolving the attack. So like normally his damage is 2, you get to roll a dice and you get to do more damage. So you might only do 1 instead. Could do the 2 that you normally do, but you could potentially do like up to 6. Just kind of showing him using his expertise of using his sharp weapons. And then he's got like a defense. You gotta know what a crumpet is to play cricket. And that's a quote from the movie, the original live action movie, if you're not familiar. So then we would grab our handy guide here and go to defense. And again, you might be like, well, I gotta keep referencing guides. You do. But yeah, if you play this game enough, you kind of already got... lots of the same things happen over and over and over. You start to memorize what they do. Combat reflexes for defense. This character has a modified defense value +2 against close combat attacks. So basically showing that he's good at dodging close range attacks. This character may choose to be knocked back by any attack, which it takes damage. So if he gets hit, he can get knocked away, but he doesn't take knockback damage. So it's kind of showing that he can dodge, has a good chance of dodging and not getting hit. And if he does get hit, he can kind of like bounce away from it and not take take more damage. And then finally, he has some damage ones. I don't play around, and who else wants some? So he's got Exploit Weakness and Battlefury. So Battlefury is character can't make ranged combat attacks, and can't be the target of mind control and carry. So basically, he's like in a rage. And his other one was Exploit Weakness, if I'm right, if I remember. Give this character a close combat action. Damage from this attack is penetrating damage. It's basically there's penetrating damage, breaks through some of the defense. I don't remember exactly how that works. The other thing you're going to see in this book here are team abilities. So that's something these turtles don't have in the Fast Forces pack. They don't have a team symbol. This is the DC one. So the Legion book. So they're going to show like all these different team abilities. So if you have characters with a team ability, they're going to have a special extra ability if you're using the team. And it can be anything from like Superman ally members ignore effects of hindering terrain, basically showing that they can fly, or like the Batman, all members may use stealth even if they don't have the stealth power. And that's just also kind of neat when you're building your team. You're gonna pick characters with multiple abilities. Alright, so that was that. That's a lot of explanations. So I'm gonna kind of fly through some of the rest of these guys a little bit quicker. But I like making sure you know what's kind of going on. So here we have Michelangelo. These are really good sculpts compared to like the old ones. Are very arguably. Like they've only been getting better as time goes by. Michelangelo has the same stats: TMNT, TMNT Ally, Animal, Martial Artist. His special unique ability, excuse me, Boundless Enthusiasm, unique modifier. Adjacent characters in Donatello, Leonardo, Raphael gain 1 speed. So Raph gives extra damage, Michelangelo gives extra speed. So he's got Cowabunga, which is a leap climb, and he has Fight from the front, which is charge. So leap climb is give the character a move action and automatically breaks away and ignores the effects of characters. That's another thing. If they're next to a character, an enemy character, and they try and move, they have to roll to see if the guy will let them get away. Michelangelo is basically like slippery. It's an aspect they put in lots of his games. You play as him. Also, hindering terrain, elevated terrain, outdoor blocking. When you give this character a close combat action, it can target a grounded or flying character regardless of elevation or flight mode. He's basically showing that he's very nimble. He can bounce around, he can get up and hit guys. His attack is Incapacitate. Hold on there, Sparky. Incapacitate is... Yeah, I could just kind of give you the gist of it, but I'll read it quick. So it's an optional ability. And so you'll notice that some of these aren't optional. So optional, like Earthbound's not an optional one. Most of these abilities are optional, but some of them aren't. And that makes a distinction on what you're doing. So Incapacitate. Give this character a close combat action or a ranged combat action. Although Mikey has 0 for range, so making a ranged one with him doesn't make any sense. Its damage becomes 0 until the action has been resolved. If this character successfully hits a target that has 0 or 1 action token, give it an action token. So it's basically he's like grabbing them or wrapping his nunchucks around them, stopping them from moving by giving them an extra action token, making him harder to use that character in the next turn. His defense is, you're still trying to hit me, and then go ninja, go ninja, go. Also a reference from the movie. So he gets, where are we at for defense? He has combat reflexes and super senses. His super senses, when he is hit by an attack, roll 1d6 before damage. On a roll of 5 or 6, he evades the attack. So it's kind of like Spider-Man's spider senses, which is where it came from. Again, it's showing Mikey being more dodgy. Like, Raph is kind of like, runs up, hits guys, he's up close, personal. Mikey's more, I'm moving around the board a lot. And then he had combat reflexes, which is modify a character's defense by +2 against close combat attacks when he chooses to be knocked back and taking damage. The same thing Raph had. And then his damage, he has never pay full price for late pizza, also a quote from the movie, and that one has Perplex, which is on this page somewhere. Perplex, optional. Once during your turn, but not during another action, is a free action. This character modifies +1 or -1 any combat value, including range of a target character, including itself, to the end of turn. Character using this power must be within 10 squares of the target and have a clear line of fire to the target. So basically you can up either increase his values to do an extra range or do extra point of attack damage or help one of his teammates. Support type character. I think you can kind of like compare their stats together. So Mikey gets to move a little bit more, 8s and 7s versus 9s and 8s. Their attacks aren't too bad. Raph starts a little bit higher. Mikey has a little bit more defense, because he moves around more, but he also does a little bit more damage. And so I'd say, well, why would I? Yeah, but he's also he's meant to be moving around and helping his team out a little bit more than Raph is going to get right up in there and do more damage with his abilities. So that's where that comes from. Up next, we have Donatello. He does machines. There's his bow. So now, he has a range of 2 because of his bow staff. Same keywords. Prudently cautious. Unique modifier. Adjacent characters named Leonardo, Michelangelo, or Raphael modify their defense value by +1. So he boosts all their defense. He has stealth. Sit back and watch. So what stealth does... any line of fire drawing a character that crosses any hindering terrain, including a square of hindering terrain occupied by the character, is treated as though it crosses blocking terrain. So basically, if he sits somewhere where something's blocking him at least a little bit, he doesn't take anything. So he's a pretty good ninja. And then he has Proceed with Caution, which is a sidestep, which is a new ability that was not available during the Legion of Superheroes. So I'm not sure what sidestep does. And then he has yeah for his attack, which is Quake. Quake is a fun ability. Quake. Give this character a close combat action. Until the act has been resolved, its damage value becomes 2 if it is greater than 2. Make a single attack roll, and I think they list it like that, like until it's resolved, because then you might have something that modifies it afterwards. Make a single attack roll and compare the resulting defense to all opposing characters adjacent to this character. Each character that takes damage from this attack is knocked back. So it's basically like him slamming the ground, which is like what Quake could be, or him spinning his bow staff in a circle. His defense is Sharp Eyes, Energy Shield, Deflection. Energy Shield Deflection is modify this character's defense by 2 against ranged combat attacks. Basically saying it's saying that he can see stuff. And that's why I do like they kind of started adding some of these like words in here, like the little phrases, because then it makes more sense. Because you're like why would Donatello? Oh, because he's waiting around and he's being more observant. Same with Sharp Eyes. Well, that's why he has energy shield or deflection, because he doesn't have that technical ability normally, but it makes sense when you're like, okay, because he's the observant one. He's not the one to rush in. And that's why I like they started adding these, because it kind of gives more reason to why they might have those abilities. And then his damage is analyze the situation and here, have some pizza. So Outwit, during your turn, but not another action, is a free action. This character counters a power possessed by a single target character. Treat the target as does not possess the countered power, and so on and so forth. So it's actually kind of neat, because he's basically, I'm smarter than you. Like, you can't use your, ranged ability on me or whatever. Like, I'm smart enough to see that's coming, and I can dodge it, or I can counteract it, or whatever. A very Batman ability. Then his other one was... What was his other one? Oh, Support. I think was back on this one. So Support is basically a healing ability. Give this character power action, makes a roll against an adjacent friendly characters, as well as making a combat attack. Near this character, another target may be adjacent to opposing characters, so you can't be next to an enemy. Ignore all combat value modifiers for the purpose of this attack. If it is successful, roll 1d6 and subtract 2 from the result to a minimum 1 and heal that many damage. So basically, he's giving someone a piece of pizza to heal them. And there's his stats. So he's got some decent movements, some decent defense. I think they try to keep most of their stats kind of the same, and let their abilities reflect how different they were. Alright, and now we have Leonardo. I like that this one has the double straps. It's kind of funny. So he has, again, no range. I kind of wish they would have given him a range of 1, at least, for his swords, because like the swords are obviously longer than the size or potentially the nunchucks. But again, they might have in a different version. Unique ability, the turtle with the plan. Unique modifier, adjacent characters named Donatello, Michelangelo, Raphael modify their attack by +1. So basically, if you have all four standing in a square, they would have +1 speed, +1 attack, +1 defense, and +1 movement. But again, if you have like in a line, then like the one on the end would only gain 1, the two in the middle would each gain 2 abilities, So that's interesting. Alright, so he has Bushido Stance, which is sidestep again. I don't have that one. I'm going to assume it's a easy way to like possibly dodge it, probably like rolling a 5 or 6 such in dodge and attack. He has lead from the front, which is a charge, if you see on Raphael. You can half his movement to jump forward and do an attack. Ooh, I'm dry. His attack is practiced katanas, blade, fangs, and claws, like we see on Raphael as well, where he can do extra damage. His defense is the strength to keep going, which is willpower. We have not seen that one yet. So let's look at willpower, if I can find it on here. Defense. Willpower. This character does not take pushing damage. So basically, what pushing damage is, every time you use an action on a character, you put a little token next to them, or you could probably put it on their cards, now that they have cards, just to indicate you've used that character. And I think at the beginning of every turn, you can remove so many tokens. I don't remember how many you remove. I don't think you remove all of them. I think you remove a certain number. Again, so you can't keep using the same character over and over. But Leonardo will let you use that ability to do pushing damage. You might be like, oh, it's awesome. I could just keep using him over and over and over. Except, he only gains that in his last 2 stats. So what that's essentially saying is if he's on stat 3, if you do an ability, use him, and then, if you try to use him another time, you take a point of damage, and then you click to this, you can actually do 2 more attacks when he's on either one of these, without having him do it. But you have to get him to the end of his dial, which also means he's in danger of being KO'd. And then he has 2 damage abilities. Brothers, listen to me, and ending this. So leadership and exploit weakness. And we've seen exploit weakness, does extra damage, but we haven't seen leadership. Once at the beginning of your turn, as a free action, roll 1d6. On a result of 4 to 6, add 1 action to your action total for that turn. So basically, if you could spend 2 points, now you can spend 3 points. A player can only gain 1 action with this power, even if the player has more than 1 character's leadership. So you can't load up like, I have 6 characters in leadership, I'm going to do 6 points of damage. It doesn't work that way. And so there are his abilities. 7's not as much movement. He actually has less attack to start off with because he has that leadership. And my guess they did that to kind of refrain you from running in and attacking with him right away. But you can kind of see if you look at all 4 other abilities. Michelangelo in the end does the most amount of damage on the bottom stat. Defense, Donnie starts with the most, and Leo ends it the most, and the other 2 are kind of in the middle. Attack power, they're all kind of about the same. It's Leo actually has a little bit more with some 11s in there in his swords. But yeah, otherwise the rest are all 9s and 10s and 11s. They're kind of all roughly about the same. And then movement is Mikey can move the most. Raph and Donnie move the same. And then Leo actually has the least amount of movement. So it's kind of an interesting balance between the 4 turtles. Now, the other thing we have, which this is actually kind of interesting that they included these guys. I'll try and get them out of here without breaking them. Is we have good old Bebop and Rocksteady, but they're human forms. They're like gangster forms. So Bebop and Rocksteady. And it's also interesting, Rocksteady here, the big bruiser of them, has no range. And again, they have that movements of foot ability. But then Bebop has 4 range. So it's actually kind of interesting because you can get Bebop kind of stay back and do some ranged attacks on the turtles. And really, not, Donatello was the only one that has range with 2. So you can actually do some massive damage before they get next to him. But then you can have Bebop standing, or Rocksteady standing there to bash on them afterwards. Alright, and they're both 40 points, so they each cost 10 less than the other ones. Let's look at their abilities. So they got a couple of other things. They have some keywords: Foot Clan, Purple Dragon, and Animal. Their special ability, and this is the same for both of them, just a little bit different. So, what's this mutant stuff do again, boss? At the beginning of the game, you may place an adjacent Warthog bystander. When the Warthog is KO'd by an opponent's attack for the rest of the game, Bebop can use all of its powers and modifiers and modifies its combat values by 1. So basically, he gets stronger. And then he has some abilities as running gun. He has a running shot movement ability, which is running shot. Give this character a power action, half its speed total. For the action, move the character up to its speed and give it 1 range. It's like the charge that like Raph and Leo have, except it's a ranged attack instead. So instead of moving a bunch of spaces, he can move a couple and then stop and shoot. So it gives him the option to do like 2 actions at once. He also has sidestep. And then he has Don't Make Me Chase You Down. He has the energy deflection with stick and move, combat reflexes, kill them before they touch you, and Battlefury on his damage. The animal takes over, which you've seen all those. And then down here we have a little Warthog token. So in some of the newer Fast Forces packs, like I've seen some of the Marvel and DC ones, they usually come with little like counters, or it might not even be the Fast Forces. It might be another. It's like a token pack that has some dice and some tokens and stuff you can use. And they usually have little sides, or you can get little pop-out tokens in some of the things for these to represent the characters. I just don't know if they just didn't do it for this or what. Basically, you place a token down, it'll act as its Warthog, who will have Flurry, Fangs and Claws, Toughness, so he can do some damage. But as soon as he's KO'd, he beefs up Bebop a lot. And then there are his stats. So he has less movement and attack than some of the turtles, but he also has pretty high defense. He's only got 4 clicks, so he's not going to last as long. But once you KO that Warthog, which is essentially his 5th click, he does a lot more damage. And then we have Rocksteady. What's the Mutant do? It's the same thing, except it says instead of placing a Warthog, you place the Rhinoceros. And it does the same thing. He has a little less abilities as a sidestep again, Don't Make Me Chase You Down, Tough Skin, and then he has Close Combat Expert. This is how you make Turtle Soup, and I don't think we looked at that one yet. So let's look at what that one does. Close Combat Expert. Give this character a power action if it makes a close combat attack against a single opposing character, modifies damage by 2. Close Combat Expert can't be used when using object as a weapon. So if you pick up, you can pick up like trash cans and cars and stuff. But yeah, he can definitely. He already has a. What's he have for his damage? He has 2, so his last one he can do up to 4. There's the Rhino again. It has a little bit better stacks than some of the other characters. But it's charge and invulnerability. So we haven't seen invulnerability either. This is one that he could gain. That's his damage. I am looking at the wrong thing. Defense. Invulnerability. This character's damage to the character is reduced by 2. So he already has toughness, which reduces his damage by 1. And then if he KOs this guy and he gains this invulnerability power, plus he gains +1 modifier, so he's going to be harder. You have to roll 1 more, plus he'll have 2 and plus 2 more there. So you have 3, if I'm understanding how that works correctly. That can make him really hard to take out. And there are his abilities. Alright, so that's what we got. Hopefully if I start buying some more stuff, more Heroclix, I'll show off them if you guys enjoyed these videos. I'm going to add on a quick bit. I'm just going to show some of the old ones just so you kind of get an idea of what they were.